Hello guys, so welcome to DMA Tutorials. DMA Tutorials is an educational channel on YouTube. What we'll do here is to help students pass their exams in the use of English and in literature. Today's video is on one of the poems recommended by JAMB for literature students. So if you're writing literature this year, please, I advise that you watch this video to the end. It will really help you to understand this poem, The Anvil and the Hammer. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please just click the subscribe button. It doesn't cost anything. It's as simple as clicking the like button on Facebook. Now, let's get started. We are going to start by reading the poem, then analyzing the poem. We move over to the themes found in the poem and the poetic devices. Caught between the anvil and the hammer, in the forging house of a new life, transforming the pangs that delivered me into the joy of new song. The trapping of the past, tender and tenuous, woven with the fiber of sisal, and washed in the blood of the goat in the fetish hut, are laced with the flimsy glories of Pep Street. The jargon of new dialectic comes with the charisma of the perpetual search on the Atlas hill. So the old days for us our fathers, that we can wear them under our new garments, after we have washed ourselves in the whirlpool of many rivers, determined to ignore those we use snatches from their tunes. Make ourselves new flags and anthems, while we lift high the banner of the land and listen to the reverberation of our songs in the splash and moan of the sea. Now let's look at the analysis of the poem. The Anvil and the Hammer is a poem that talks about the experience of a person with two cultural experiences. The poetic persona, that is the person in the poem, is emphasizing throughout the poem that neither the African culture nor the Western culture be ignored. He calls on Africans to accept the Western culture, learn from it and use it to improve the African culture, not minding the prejudice they may face as Africans in the Western world. We are going to look at this poem stanza by stanza to help you have an in-depth understanding of the poem. Caught between the anvil and the hammer in the forging house of a new life, transforming the pangs that delivered me into the joy of new songs. In this stanza, the person affirms that he is in the middle of two different cultures, which he represents with the anvil and the hammer. The anvil is a heavy block of iron used by blacksmiths, on which heated iron is placed to be shaped or molded. Here, the persona uses the anvil to represent the African culture, and the hammer, which is used in shaping the heated iron, as the Western culture. In this stanza, the persona tells us that he is the one between the anvil and the hammer, that is the African culture, and the Western culture. He sits on the anvil, that is African culture, with the hammer, the Western culture, hitting hard upon him or coming upon him. What the poetic persona is saying in this stanza is that he lives on the precepts of the African culture only for the Western culture through colonialism to come upon him forcefully. In line 2 of this stanza, he says that he is the heated iron with the molding done on him by the hammer in the forging house of a new life. And the forging house of a new life in this stanza is colonialism. Here, the persona is representing the forging house. Forging house is a place where the blacksmiths stay to work. It's like the office of the blacksmith as colonialism, because colonialism is the avenue or the place where the Westerners forcefully brought their culture upon Africans. In lines 3 and 4, transforming the pangs that delivered me into the joy of new songs. The persona is saying in those lines that he loves the transformation that the Western culture brings to him. He enjoys the civilization that colonialism delivers. Now let's look at the second stanza. The trapping of the past, tender and tenuous, woven with the fiber of sisal, and washed in the blood of the goat, in the fetish hut, are laced with the flimsy glories of Pep Street. The jargon of a new dialectic comes with the charisma of a perpetual search on the Atlas hill. In this stanza, the persona talks about the values and traditions of the African people, which he describes to be delicate and strict, even though some of those values are unnecessary. This is illustrated in the first line of the stanza. In the second line of this stanza, he says that the sharpening of the past, which is the African culture, was very strong. The fiber of sisal is one of the strongest fibers used in making rope, so that shows how strong the African culture was to the African people. And in line 3 of this stanza, washed in the blood of a goat in a fetish hut, he points out that the African tradition is also mixed with the African religious practices. In lines 4, 5, and 6 of this stanza, it shows how the cultural practices of the Africans are now being mixed with the Western culture and the excitement the Western culture brings, which makes Africans want to discover more about the Western culture. Charisma of perpetual search on the outlaw's hill. Now let's move over to stanza 3. So the days for us are fathers, that we can wear them under our new garments, after we have washed ourselves in the whirlpool of many rivers, estuary. We hear their songs and rumors every day. Determined to ignore this, we use snatches from their tunes. In this stanza, the poetic persona is calling on the elders to inculcate the African culture into them so that they will not lose their identity to civilization. This is seen in lines 1 to 4 of this stanza. So the old days for us are fathers, that we can wear them under our new garments, after we have washed ourselves in the whirlpool of many rivers, estuary. He is buttressing the importance of Africans having their cultures instilled in them, which help them to always remember their origin even after they have learnt the Western culture. In lines 5 to 7, the person acknowledges that they are aware of the prejudice, castigations, and derogatory statements made against the blacks by the whites. Such derogatory statements include words like black monkeys, half-humans, etc., which the Westerners called the Africans, as illustrated in line 5 of this stanza. We hear their songs and rumors every day. The persona is saying that he will ignore those comments and use the little knowledge or the little thing they learnt from the whites to build the African nation. Stanza 4. Make ourselves new flags and anthems, while we lift high the banner of the land and listen to the reverberation of our songs in the splash and moan of the sea. In this stanza, the poetic persona is saying that they will use what they have learnt from the whites to build a new political structure in Africa. Make ourselves new flags and anthems, as seen in the first line of this stanza, shows the intention of the persona to restructure the political system of Africa with the method he learnt from the whites, because prior colonization Africans did not have flags and anthems as identities of a state. In the second, third, and last lines of this stanza, the persona tells us that they will promote the African continent across the world and listen to how the whites will change their opinions about the blacks. This is buttressed in the last line, and listen to the reverberation of our songs. In conclusion, the poem illustrates the attack on African culture by civilization through colonialism, causing a clash of the two cultures and the birth of a man who is desperate to recover his culture, which is almost swallowed up by civilization, by building a new African nation with the knowledge he got from civilization. Next, we move over to the themes of the poem. But before we do that, please, if there's something you don't understand or something you want to add to the analysis of this poem, let me know in the comment section. And guys, if you haven't subscribed yet, please click that subscribe button. It helps to promote this video on YouTube. It will also help you to get instantly notified whenever we upload a new video on this channel. Now let's look at the themes. The first theme we are going to consider is civilization. This theme occurs throughout the poem. The poem generally talks about the modern way of life that the Westerners through colonialism brought to Africa and how it has affected everything about Africa, ranging from norms to their religion, which the persona describes to be laced with flimsy glories in line 4 of stanza 2. In the last stanza of the poem, he mentioned how he would use the civilization brought to Africa by the Westerners to rebuild and reposition Africa in the world. Make ourselves flags and anthems, while we lift high the banner of the land, shows his intention to make Africa known to the world through civilization that was brought by the Westerners to them. The second thing we'll consider is colonialism. This is another thing that's evident in the poem. In this poem, the hammer is used to represent the colonial masters. The way the hammer comes forcefully upon an object is the same way the colonial masters forcefully invaded the land of Africa without any invitation. No African man sat on a round table with the colonial masters to decide if Africa needed to be colonized. The poem describes colonialism as the new forging house where the African culture, the anvil, and the Western culture, the hammer, meet. The last thing we are going to consider in this poem is culture conflict. Culture conflict. In the first line of the poem, caught between the anvil and the hammer, goes on to show us the two objects who are in conflict for the African man, which represents the heated metal on the anvil, waiting to be molded. The anvil, which is the African culture, is what the persona is conversant with, which is where he sits. Then the hammer, which represents the Western culture, clashes with the anvil to mold him into a different shape. The next thing we're going to consider in this poem is the poetic devices. The poetic devices are the figures of speech and the style the poet used in writing the poem. So the first one we're going to consider is imagery. Imagery refers to the mental picture the reader gets in the lines of the poem. In this poem, one can find the imagery of violence in words and expressions like caught between the anvil and the hammer. That expression gives a mental picture of someone who is trying to escape but is forcefully held down by the hammer, which of course you already know that represents the Western culture. Other words like pangs, whirlpool, and moan also give the mental picture of pain and confusion. There is also the imagery of African nationalism, that is, the mental picture of one who loves his continent. This is seen in the last stanza. Make ourselves new flags and anthems while we lift high the banner of the land. This stanza shows us that the persona loves his continent and has the intention of building it. The next poetic device we'll consider is alliteration. Alliteration happens when consonant sounds are repeated in the lines of a poem. An example is found in the first line of stanza 2. Trapping of the past, tender and tenuous. Here there is a repetition of t sound in trapping, tender and tenuous. The next figure of speech we'll consider is apostrophe. This is a poetic device which involves talking to non-existing thing as if it were existing, or talking to something or someone that is not present and cannot hear you as if it were present and could hear you. An example is found in the third stanza of the poem, "So the old days for us our fathers, that we can wear them under a new garment." In those lines, the persona was talking to the fathers as if they were present at the moment, listening to him. With that, we come to the end of this tutorial. I hope it was a good revision for you, or probably you learned something new. And please guys, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, click the subscribe button. It helps to promote this video on YouTube and also helps to get you instantly notified whenever we upload a new video on this channel. Clicking the subscribe button is totally free, doesn't cost anything, doesn't cost an extra data. It's as simple as clicking the Facebook like button. Thanks so much for watching, and please click the subscribe button.